Hey guys, so we're here with Delon from Powerbrake, and he's going to walk us through some of the details and the history of the brand.
Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate it. So Powerbrake was founded in 2004. We're out of South Africa, so it was founded by motorsport enthusiasts who'd they'd been in the brake industry for a long period, and then started building high-performance brake systems for race cars. Worked with BMW Motorsport, Nissan Motorsport, Ferrari race teams. So that was where the business started. But being in South Africa, we live off-road. It's part of our culture. It's we just spend weekends in the bush, driving out, your vacation with your family in the bush. So we started developing off-road brake systems for Hiluxes, Land Cruiser, 279 series. And over time, that's just become the core focus of the business. So we are really a specialist company in off-road, four-wheel drive, overlanding brakes. 10 years ago, we started working with Toyota Gazoo Racing on a Dakar Rally program. They asked us to develop a brake system for the Toyota Hilux race truck. And it's a really important part of our business because it gives a huge amount of testing for us. The Dakar Rally is the toughest off-road race in the world. It runs over 12 days every January, and it's over 4,000 miles in 12 days. The trucks are really heavy, so we develop a lot of data, a lot of technology around that, and everything we develop on the race trucks, we then bring into the four-wheel drive product that we supply for Tacoma, Forerunner, Ford Ranger. So we bring that information that we learn, and we bring it in and develop a product that you guys can use on your off-road vehicle, that you can use on your overland vehicle.
So I've added significant amount of weight to my truck. I've added the camper, interior build, bumpers, a bunch of different things. The truck's 6,700 pounds now. And for a while, I've thought about upgrading my brakes, and I've held off. Can you tell people why they want to upgrade their brakes and move to something like this?
Yeah, so I think, again, as Daniel said, the big problem that we have as overlanders is we add so much weight to the vehicle. You know, we're doing the campers, we're doing the bumpers, we're doing all of that type of stuff. And then inside, you've got the water tank, right? So you've got the internal water tank, and it's just adding all this weight. And the heavier the car gets, the harder it is going to be to consistently brake it. So a big brake kit is not so much about the first brake application. Yes, there's an improvement on the first application, but what we want to do is keep consistency. So if we consider you driving down a mountain pass and you've got a lot of twists and turns going down the pass, we want to keep that same brake consistency at the first stop when we get to the 10th stop. We don't want to, because that's where the OE brakes will eventually start to fade. As you're going down and you're consistently applying the brakes, you're going to start picking up the heat, and that's where you're going to start running into the fade. Remember, brakes is all about storage of heat. So a bigger brake kit is going to give you more storage, and that's going to allow you to consistently have brakes as you go down the mountain pass where you may be braking coming down a very technical section, or down a very large mountain where you're going to need to consistently brake. So that's why you need a big brake kit.
Yeah, so we were talking before off camera about how I had an experience where I had brake fade. We were coming down the top of Mount Whitney, which is super steep, very high incline, and I had Luke and his wife in the car, and my pedal was just mashed to the ground to where I started having to use the transmission to do it. And by the time we got to the bottom, it was like a relief that we made it almost, and we parked for a while and let things cool. Can you talk about kind of how this is going to help in those situations or prevent those situations from happening?
Yeah, so you get brake fade usually comes in two different methods, right? Or two different things happen when you get brake fade. The first thing is you'll boil brake fluid. That's the one type of brake fade that you'll get. So that'll still, basically what happens is you have water and viscosity in the brake fluid. As the temperature rises, you start to basically boil the brake fluid. So the water becomes vapor, and what will actually happen at that point is that you will push the pedal, and the pedal will go down to the floor. So your pedal will actually go to the floor. So that's the one type of brake fade. The second type of brake fade is where you go over the temperature range of the pad. So basically the rotor is going to get to its storage capacity on heat, and then you're going to go over the working temperature range of the brake pads. So what will happen there is you actually still have a pedal, but you're over the range of the pad. So you're going to have pedal, but you're going to have almost no more stopping power, or you're over that friction level that it can manage. So again, coming back to why we need a big brake kit, it's about management of heat. We always need to manage the heat with such heavy trucks so that we can keep it in a range that firstly you're not boiling the brake fluid, but secondly you're staying in the temperature range of what the brake pad can manage.
So before I put the camper on, there was a certain point where my vehicle was a lot lighter. And what would adding this kit do for someone who's maybe just driving really hard in the desert, the pre-runner guys that are going beating the crap out of the truck?
Yeah, so it's actually quite interesting. We have two markets that we work with. And again, remember, if you're a pre-runner customer, if you've done a Tacoma and you're just playing in the desert, we're talking about you are getting the same brake package or DNA of a Dakar rally truck. So visualize that in your mind. Dakar rally have desert stages, they have very tight twisty stages. So that's the level of product you're getting. Actually, what's interesting for us is one of our test vehicles in South Africa is a Ford Ranger Raptor, which you don't get in the States. But what we've seen is there's sort of two markets developing. Obviously the Overland adventure customer, but then there's also the guys who like to play with their truck. Normally driving quite quickly, normally throwing it around a lot more. And in that kind of environment, and that's what we're doing. Actually, we do a lot of our testing at an area which is very strong on rally driving, rally training. So it's a rally test track, and there we're really playing with the brakes. But of course, you're on and off the brakes all the time. So again, we're wanting to manage that heat. So as you're playing with the truck and you're on and off the brakes, and I don't know if you've ever seen, there's some really cool videos of desert drivers, Dakar rally drivers, where they left foot braking all the time on the brakes, and that's just pushing temperature up. So you've got to manage the temperature. When we get down to the product a little later, I'll actually talk you through the different pad options, and that also becomes important maybe for the pre-runner crowd and the pre-runner customer. So yes, two different customer bases, but the same thing, we have to manage that heat.
Great. So walk me through what we have in front of us here.
Yeah, so we've got the different types of calipers that we manufacture, okay? Let's start again with the Dakar Rally calipers. So if you look at the two calipers, this is for your truck, for a Tacoma, for a 4Runner. This is for a Dakar Rally truck. So you can see the DNA pulls across from what we do there straight into what will fit to a Tacoma, Ranger, 4Runner. What's quite interesting here is this is actually a water-cooled caliper. So what we do for the Dakar trucks is we machine from the billet aluminum a very, very detailed and integrated radiator system in the caliper. And then it goes through to a temperature sensing point, and that will then feed back to the Motec system in the truck, and at a certain temperature, it will actually kick on a pump, which will radiate through an external radiator, through the radiator of the caliper, and it cools the temperature from around 460 degrees Fahrenheit right down to sort of 360. So it really makes a big difference. And they run that front and rear on the rally trucks. So coming to what you'll fit onto your Tacoma, the first thing we do is we bolt from the back. And that's really important because we need to fit under 17-inch wheels as much as possible. So we bolt from the back. That allows as much clearance as possible, and we actually machine away on the caliper that it allows it to fit under most 17-inch wheels, including the OE wheels if a customer decides to run 17-inch OE wheels. If we look at the inside of the caliper, all stainless steel pistons. And the reason we run stainless steel is a lot of manufacturers use aluminum pistons, but aluminum transfers heat a lot easier than stainless steel does. And as we discussed earlier, we're trying to manage heat. So by having stainless steel, we're keeping the heat away from the brake fluid as much as possible. Inside, we have a pressure seal and then an internal wiper seal. And the reason we do that is a lot of caliper manufacturers have a boot that they use on the piston to try and keep the dust and the dirt out. But that boot gets hot and it crumbles and it falls away. Now, we're an off-road specialty company, and our customers are doing a lot of river crossings, a lot of dirt roads. So we don't want all of that dirt, mud, etc. starting to get in towards the pressure seal and damaging the seal, because that's going to then compromise your brake system. So internal pressure seal, you can see how we machine away for the weight of the caliper. So the caliper is really light for all the extra work we do. The caliper is manufactured out of billet aluminum. And one of the reasons we do that is we want to give the caliper as much rigidity as possible. So in that lane is we have a very strong bridge that comes over here, because as you're applying the brakes, the caliper wants to spread itself open. And so we want to give you that rigidity, and that's important for pedal feel, and it's really important for pedal feel how you get that. The next thing is we have all internal crossover porting. So there's nothing externally on the caliper that can get hit by a rock or damage it. A lot of caliper manufacturers actually use an external crossover tube, and especially guys trying to take street calipers and then they try and fit them to the Tacomas and try and come with a solution. We've got a fully engineered brake solution. So internal crossover tubes, and then you'll see even here how we recess the bleeder screw away. And that's, again, because of the way the rocks in that can come through and actually hit the caliper. We want those bleeder screws well protected. For some of your customers that are maybe in the mountain areas in California and there's a lot of salt and stuff on the roads that they're trying to do, we use stainless steel components. So that gives more corrosion resistance, and that's an important thing for them. Then, if we go here to temperature measurement, every single caliper that Powerbrake manufactures has temperature measuring on. The way to help educate ourselves and the way to help manage the brake system in temperature is to know what we're running the temperature to. So these temperature sensing tabs will run to the highest level the caliper has ever run to and hold it there. So it actually changes color as it moves up, and that's really important for us to know what brake fluid to use. So for example, if you're running really high temperatures, then we need to move you to a different type of brake fluid, for example. But anything under 390 degrees is where Fahrenheit is where you want the temperature to be. If you get to 490 and we see that, you have to rebuild the calipers. That's a point where the calipers require a rebuild. So yeah, it's just a very high-end caliper that is made for off-roading and allows you to either play with your pre-runner or do the 4x4ing and the off-roading and the vacation off-road with family.
Yeah, one of the takeaways from just listening to you go over this right now and other conversations we've had is the thoughtfulness behind it and kind of that racing heritage that it has. That's one of the reasons why we carry an Audi Cab camper, is because the detail and the thought that goes into it and the years and years of R&D behind it. So you're going through this stuff, and it's, brakes, again, especially in this industry, are an afterthought. They're not typically perceived to be the sexiest thing, but you're taking race stuff and race experience, and you're all putting it into a package with the thoughtfulness to make sure that things aren't going to be damaged when I'm going off-road, which is, again, a reason why we want to carry the product, the thoughtfulness behind it, and the time you guys have taken to develop it.
Yeah, so that's really important for us. Everything that a good example on calipers, and again, I come to people that are using this caliper for Tundra and trying to fit it to a 4Runner or a Tacoma or something. There's a lot of that in the industry that guys try and do.
Yep.
We put a huge amount of effort into balancing the hydraulics of the vehicle. So over the years, we've developed proprietary software where we design a kit. We take in all the parameters of the hydraulics, and then we balance the vehicle in our software and then calculate it out to give the right balance of the vehicle. And that's the reason why we have different piston sizes, for example. It's all hydraulically calculated. So going into all the detail, and you see when we get to the rotors, again, the same amount of detail has gone into it. You can't win a Dakar rally with Toyota Motorsport with not having those details in place.
Sure. So I just moved to a 17-inch wheel to allow the fitment of the larger rotor. Can you go into the detail of the size of the rotor and kind of the difference between that and the OEM one?
Yeah, so we do need 17-inch wheels for our big brake kits. What's really good about this rotor, and it's our stage 1 rotor, is this is absolutely unique. We specially built tooling for the mid-side trucks. So you're looking at Tacoma, 4Runner, Jeep Gladiator, and Ford Ranger. It's a 13.7-inch rotor that has directional cooling vanes in it. So it actually has curved vanes that allows the air to flow through. So if you think about how a rotor cools, it's like a centrifugal pump. Basically, air is pushed or flows into the center of the rotor, and then it is pushed out, and the air going over the vanes is how a rotor cools itself. So first thing is we've got a bigger rotor that then allows you to have more capacity and storage for heat. Secondly, we've got air that's coming in, and it has more area to flow over, so it's going to cool better. And then the last thing is, if you can imagine a straight vane on an OE or a aftermarket rotor, replacement rotor, it's not flowing as easily. So that's why we developed it, and it really was a big investment for us in terms of tooling, all the different models and so on. And that's why the standard rotors don't. They only need to tool one, where we have to tool a left and right for each application. In addition, we use a proprietary paint that we use, or surface treatment that goes onto the rotor. And that's important because if you buy a new aftermarket rotor, it usually has oil on it, and that oil needs to be cleaned off. But we're supplying a high performance brake pad included in the kit, and we don't want you to contaminate the pad. So what's really good about this is, as you take the rotor out and you're going to mount it onto the hub, make sure the hub is really, really clean, and then you need no more cleaning after that. You just put the rotor directly onto the clean hub. So then the next thing that's really important, and remember, we're always talking about how we manage heat, how we understand heat in the brake system. What's really important is we use heat temperature paint on every single rotor, so that it will hold the highest temperature that the brake system has run to. And that allows us, specifically on the rotor, to know which brake pad compound you need to be running. And that's a really key piece of information, is to know what brake pad you need to run. So the heat temperature tabs work as follows. 500 degrees Fahrenheit, 850, 1000. Here's important on the blue and the green, is that gives us a certain idea of the first brake pad compound that we supply with the big brake kit. When you start getting to 1000 degrees Fahrenheit, that's where we start talking about an upgrade set of pads. And maybe let's talk about the pads now, because every Powerbrake kit comes with pads preloaded in the kit. So that's really important in terms of your fitment. You're basically going to, once you've mounted everything up, you're able to just fit the caliper on, pads are already in place. It comes with a compound that we call PBO1, and that's coming back to this temperature where we want to be sitting between 500 and 850. If we're getting to the 1000 degrees Fahrenheit, that's where we start talking about stepping you up to PBO5. PBO5 comes from Japan. It's manufactured in our cooperation, but it's one of the top brake pad manufacturers in the world. It really is a nice upgrade above what we already supply in the kit, especially talking about your pre-runner customer. That's really a fun pad that you can do. It will run to much higher temperatures. It has a very interesting bite, and the way it progressively builds, it's really an amazing product. And then coming to your Overland customer, let's say a customer has a Toyota Tundra, he's towing a trailer. That's again where we have the next level for him to step up.
Really?
Moving on, then, if we go to the pink color, that's motorsport level. 1160 degrees Fahrenheit. If you start getting to those sort of temperatures, obviously we really have to have a strong discussion with the customer, because then we really have to be looking at how we manage those sort of temperatures. And that might be a pre-runner customer that you have, where the guys are playing at the desert and really pushing their brakes hard. And then just lastly, on the color side, we have one that runs for us as a manufacturer from 220 degrees Fahrenheit all the way up to 2300 Fahrenheit, where we can really understand what's happening in the brake system. Just lastly, on the materials, it's a cast iron material. It's a high carbon cast iron material, an alloy that we've developed specifically with our foundry.
So you walked us through the rotor that comes with the X1 kit, I believe.
Correct.
Can you take me through the next step up, the one that you can kind of build into or work your way into if you need it?
Yeah, so we then do a step up further. So if we, for example, if we felt that due to the temperature measuring and what we've seen on the caliper temperatures and so on, we need to improve the heat range, we then step you up to what we call a stage 2 kit. That is a 2-piece rotor. So it starts with the rotor ring. It has an aluminum hat. It's a floating rotor. And this is a 72 vane rotor. So this is the highest level rotor available for an off-road vehicle. 72 vanes. The material is a higher level cast iron, and it is the same material that we use for the Dakar rally trucks. But what's really cool, Daniel, is it's like a Lego set. If you have the stage 1 kit and you want to move up to the stage 2 kit, you don't have to buy new calipers, new brackets, new hoses, anything like that. That's all included. Basically, all it is a new set of rotors. And then at the same time, we would always do a new set of brake pads. So it's a really nice upgrade that's available. For some of the applications, we only have stage 2 available, just because we're able to use the rotor ring and with an aluminum hat, do the different offsets and sizes.
So we've gone over the calipers, the pads, and the rotors. Can you take us through the rest of the items that come in the box?
Yeah, so Daniel, what we wanted to do is develop a full solution. We want you to bring a customer's vehicle into the shop and be able to, and let Luke immediately be able to fit the product. So the boxes come left and right, what's needed for a left wheel and for the right wheel. So really an easy fitment solution. In the box comes all the componentry for the fitment of the caliper. It's included with a braided hose. It has the wrench for the bleeder screw. So it's really a complete fitment solution for whether you're fitting a Land Cruiser 200, a Ford Ranger, a Jeep Gladiator, whatever that is, it's the complete bolt-on solution.
Great. So thank you for spending the time and going over this with the audience and myself and Luke over the last few days, and Tiffany and the team here. Just walking through this stuff with you, I got super passionate about the Overland hobby because of the technology behind it, right? And off-road racing, I think it's just the engineering behind it and what these trucks can do is super fascinating to me. So having you walk me through kind of these parts that, again, typically aren't the sexiest product, right? It's one of the last things people think about, which is insane because it's a safety thing, right? It's one of the first things we should be thinking about. We were just talking about kind of the temperature on there and how initially when I looked at it, I thought, okay, that's really cool, but also it's kind of gimmicky. Whereas kind of having you walk me through the science behind it and why we have those things on there and how a rotor will show you kind of what pad you might need, right? Or a step up in a rotor. Again, I can't think of many other parts on the truck that actually tell you when you need to do an upgrade, which I think is just super, super cool. So thank you. Anything else about the product that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think, again, it comes back down to we need to give a brake solution. And that's why it's so fortunate that, we're out of South Africa, that the culture of being in the bush, of driving off-road, that's the important thing. And that's why we are a specialist company. We are a specialist niche off-road brake manufacturer. Our office is in North Carolina, so I live in America, and our office in North Carolina, so we have all that support that's needed for the US customers. But it just comes back down to, again, whether you're an overlander and you're going away for a weekend and you've got an alu cab on or a rooftop tent or anything like that, where you're adding the extra weight, putting your family in the vehicle, putting the dog in, the bicycles in the back, we've got to think about the safety from that perspective. Or if you're a pre-runner customer that's playing in the desert, your goal is to improve the performance. So we have just gone into every detail on the off-road brake system to allow you to enjoy your vehicle. And it's quite interesting. We call this a live part. So there's different parts in the vehicle. Let's say oil. You have to have a high quality oil in the truck. But if you do it today, you're not going to feel that tomorrow. We put a huge amount of effort into tires, shocks, and brakes. Those are live parts. And really, I can only say, you know, as you experience the brakes on your Tacoma and show customers the difference, this is a live part. It really gives the feedback in the driving experience. And then in addition, gives you all those safety requirements that you need. So we're really excited to be working with Tiny Rig in California, and looking forward to the next few years as the brake kits go onto the vehicles. And I think you'll see the customers as they feed back information to you, how excited they are driving with the product.
Great. Well, thank you for doing this for us. And yeah.
Cheers. Thanks very much, Daniel.
Thank you.